Welcome to Legends in Leadership, brought to you by ISF and the Carrington Group. Legends in Leadership is an inspirational podcast featuring the stories of leaders who are making a difference. Our goal is to inspire you with the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Legends in Leadership, episode number 50.
Yay.
Nobody ever thought we'd get this far. But here we are.
Historic.
Yes. I'm your host, Jason Smith, a family officer with the Carrington Group. I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Dr. Blair Ritchie, Executive Director of the International Student Foundation, and Tyler Tallman, a family officer with me at the Carrington Group. So 50th episode. The bar set pretty high for our trivia to do something really special.
Well, let's do something special.
What do you have?
All right, here we go. Well, this is the anniversary today of the passing of one of America's most legendary first ladies. So, since our guest is a first lady, we'll do this. She was the niece of a president of the United States before marrying a distant cousin who would one day become president of the United States. Mm-hmm. Her early life was filled with much sadness. Her mother died when she was 8 years old. Her father passed just 2 years later. She spent her teen years in a boarding school in London, England. Upon returning to the United States, she started a clandestine relationship with her fifth cousin once removed. When they married against his mother's will, she didn't even have to change her last name. She has always been who she is. As her husband experienced great political success, our leader faced a life-defining decision. Should she remain a supportive background player like all of the predecessors before her, or should she chart her own path? In the end, she dramatically changed the role of the First Lady office. She held her own press conferences, she wrote her own newspaper columns, she spoke out on human rights, children's causes, and women's issues. On a few occasions, she even publicly disagreed with some of her husband's policies. And after her husband's death, she remained active in public life, serving as an influential delegate to the United Nations. She was once given the title First Lady of the World. Who is this legendary leader? I'll be back at the close of the program.
Interesting. So we know her maiden name and her married name are the same?
Correct.
Interesting.
I got this.
All right. We'll see if you're right at the end of the show.
We're going to see if Millie's right.
All right. Well, our guest today, Milagros Pacheco, goes by Millie, is the Director of Marketing and Advertising for the Texas Rangers. She recently moved to Texas from a small town in New Jersey. Millie received her MBA from New York University and bachelor's degree from Lehigh University. She is an author of Today's Inspired Latina, Volume 4, and dedicated to giving back to the multicultural community and youth. Millie has worked in the consumer packaged goods, foods, food and beverages, and financial services industry. No matter what type of role she's had, she would manage to work on marketing initiatives to empower and support the multicultural community. She enjoys running in her free time and has run both the New York City and Philadelphia marathons, as well as raised funds for the American Cancer Society and Arthritis Foundation, organizations that are close to her heart. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. Super grateful to be here.
As a big baseball fan, definitely want to get into some Texas Rangers talk, but first want to hear a little bit about your background growing up and some of the early influences in your life that shaped you to who you've become today.
Sure. So I was born and raised in New Jersey, as you mentioned, and my parents were both born and raised in Peru. So very humble beginnings. I was raised with my sister in a small 2-bedroom apartment our whole lives, and they're definitely the ones who have motivated me my whole life. They really worked so hard to come to the States when they were both in their early 20s. And that was a big reason why I really wanted to start a new chapter in my life in a new city. And so after living in New Jersey my entire life, I was finally able to make the move to Dallas, and I'm super grateful to be here.
Yeah. So growing up, you mentioned humble beginnings. What are some of the lessons that you feel you learned coming from that style of upbringing?
I think it was definitely just resilience, motivation to keep going. I had a really tough move coming here in the beginning, and just remembering everything that my parents went through with very limited resources and very limited funds helped me just keep going when times were rough. And I went through almost everything that you could imagine, whether it was homesickness, heartbreak, everything. But I had my health, and I had a lot of family and friends who were always checking up on me and making sure everything was okay. So that's really what helped me the most, and just remembering that my parents went through probably way worse, and that's really what kept me going.
Yeah. So when you decided to make a move, did you have a destination in mind, or was that part of the process to kind of take that first step on your own?
Yes. So the destination was rough. I was living in a hotel for a little while, but luckily I gave myself a timeline of 1 week, and it was the toughest week ever. But I said, by that Saturday, I knew that I was going to have the keys to an apartment. I had no idea where it was going to be. And I was probably really aggressive about it. I think I applied on a Friday night and had the keys by Saturday morning. So
wow. Yeah, that's impressive.
I feel really bad for that office because I was very, very intense about it. But I had everything in my car, and I couldn't really afford to be in a hotel anymore. So it was the most interesting week. I was also my first week at work, so I had to just be really strong, and it was my first time managing a small team, and so I was really grateful to my team and my colleagues for just being patient with me while I was trying to figure life out.
Yeah. So education has played a big part of sort of your progress to where you are today. Yeah. Curious, what motivated you to go back and earn an MBA?
So when I first started working, I was working for a small Hispanic marketing agency for Colgate-Palmolive, and just being on the outside made me realize how quickly the internal employees at Colgate were growing, and whether they were associate brand managers and then being asked to be senior brand managers, made me realize that they all had their MBAs, and in marketing, it's quite competitive, and I realized that in order for me to grow and to work on the client side of a company, that it was probably time for me to go back to school. And I'm glad that I realized it at a pretty young age, because I made some great connections there, made some great friends, and it really helped me with making my connections at my next company. So that was really exciting.
Yeah. So being in the multicultural marketing space, I'm curious about the different leadership elements that different cultures tend to exude. So I guess, what have you learned as a multicultural marketing associate on different industries that's helped you progress in your journey?
What I learned the most was that you can't just translate something from English to Spanish and think that you're speaking to your market. That's something that I've learned throughout my different industries, but just in baseball, for example, most of our players are either Dominican or Venezuelan, and then our fans, we have a very huge Mexican fan base, and then just in our office, we may not exactly have gone through the same situations and life experiences that our players and our fans have gone through. So whether it's looking towards Hispanic agencies or just speaking to the players and the fans themselves is what's most important, to really make sure that we're speaking to them in their language and speaking to them about their culture and things that they've been through. So that's been really exciting for me.
There's quite a bit of nuance there. I mean, you think of languages even like English. There's American, there's Australian,
Exactly.
There's British, and just the message being not the exact same as the words that are being used.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how is that translated in different industries? So consumer packaged goods, financial services, sports, very different industries. What were the transitions like for you between some of those industries?
So for me, with baseball, with soccer, it was always something that we watched at home. And then I just knew what the Hispanic community was like when it came to sports. They have a huge passion for different kinds of sports, especially baseball and soccer. And so on the CPG side, it was always about community festivals, trial and error. And for, multicultural families, usually they're going for what they hear on the radio, what they see on television, and just sometimes what's most affordable usually is. And so what we had to do was really make sure that we were sharing quality products at the right price, but also making a big splash in stores. So whether it's huge end caps, whether it's having a celebrity there signing books and handing out toothpaste, things like that were always what made us successful in the multicultural market.
Yeah. So your success and progress, I think might lead people to believe that you haven't had much in the way of adversity or roadblocks. But having read your contribution to today's Inspired Latina, that's definitely not the case. I was curious if you could share a little bit about that experience you had with a counselor in high school that really flipped on some motivation for you to be successful.
Definitely. For me, my mom used to, and I write this in the book, but she jokes around that I'm very stubborn. And she won't be the only one to say it. But for me, just hearing what my guidance counselor had to say about not getting into any of the colleges that I was applying to, and I applied to 10, and they were all super big, elite colleges, and hearing that made me realize that I wanted it even more, and that I wasn't going to get into them, and that I had to apply to smaller schools or more affordable schools, and that just is what kept me going. I just, had to hear it once, and then I never had to go back to her again, and I realized that I could do it on my own, but sometimes you just have to remember that people are not always going to be supportive, and they're going to be brutally honest, and even if she did believe that, I didn't believe it, and so I just had to keep pushing.
And many times I find it's people's limitations of themselves that they project onto others, rather sometimes out of compassion, try to save people from the heartache and pain, but just not knowing what you personally are capable of.
Exactly.
Yeah. So did that translate into an easier time getting into your MBA program, or was that a challenge as well?
It definitely did. I still wasn't the most confident person. I still didn't think that I would be able to get into the schools that I was applying to, but at the same time, I had to just push through. I am very bad at standardized test taking, so that for me and taking the GMAT was my biggest struggle. I took it multiple times, and at the end of the day, I did not have the score they were looking for, but I told myself if everything else was strong enough on my resume and on my application that I was just hopeful, and I prayed to God at night, and just it worked out. But what I would recommend is just to keep pushing if you don't think you have all of the qualifications, and I definitely didn't for this job role here in Texas either, but just to show what you are passionate about and how much you can contribute in other areas where you may be a little stronger is what's definitely going to pay off in the end.
Curious a little bit about what you do outside of work. You sound like somebody who's busy all the time, focused on their career. So what does Millie enjoy doing when she's got a little bit of free time?
So I love running. Running is what keeps me sane. I love going out to eat, hanging out with friends, spending time with family. And but yes, definitely really passionate about giving back to the community. I've always raised funds for different organizations. I've lost an uncle to cancer a couple of years ago. So the races that I get to run are always either for good causes, for different charities. Also this past weekend, I was able to hang out with you guys at the International Student Foundation Gala, and that was super eye-opening for me to see these graduates from this program and how successful they've become and the different challenges they've been through. It's just super eye-opening to me, and it made me realize that financial support is amazing, but what they kept saying was that mentors are what really help them, and that's what reminded me is the support that adults and peers can give them is what really helps them succeed. So I am definitely passionate about things like that and giving back, and would love to, spread the word and make sure more mentors sign up.
So talk a little bit about some mentors that have been a difference maker for you. You come to Dallas, you've worked through various careers, making your way to this, what I think is an awesome job with the Texas Rangers. So who are some influences here in Dallas that you can think of that have been that mentor for you that help you along?
Yes, I would say the females that work with the organization and just across the sports industry in general. I'm sure about 10, 20 years ago, they weren't given the same opportunities, and they share some stories. I've gone to some events and some panels where they've shared some stories where they were just not trained correctly or just told that they're not going to last, so we're not going to waste our time really giving you the resources and the training that you deserve. And so just being able to go through those kinds of situations with different counterparts and being able to overcome that, and now being senior vice presidents or executives at an organization after going through all of those challenges is what's really inspiring to me.
So I know we're all eager to talk about baseball and your job there. So what led you to that job with the Texas Rangers?
So it was definitely a former manager of mine was good friends with a colleague at the Texas Rangers. She was so helpful when I told her I wanted to move to Dallas. She reached out to about 10 different people. She's super connected. She's also in one of these books. And if it wasn't for her, I really probably wouldn't have been able to make the connections that she helped me make. And then my colleague who I work with put in a great word for me with my boss. And honestly, I am so grateful for that team of people. My boss giving me a chance, because I had never had any sports background or any experience in baseball. I really didn't know the sport as much as I should have, but I was just so passionate to work for the organization. I knew how much opportunity for growth there was and how much I could be doing for the multicultural community. And I'm grateful that my team and my boss gave me the chance to excel and just empowering me to really, work on the Hispanic strategy and make a difference in our community.
So as a leader of a small team now, what's important to you outside of getting the work done, right, which is certainly a priority? What's important to you about leading the team, and what is it that you hope they're experiencing with you as their leader, as their team lead?
I would just encourage people to be themselves. I think it's so important to vent when you're stressed. We all go through those days where we're having tough times, and I try to just be the same person that they are. I'm always really clear that we're all on the same level. There's no hierarchy when it comes to that, and I just want to be personal with them and be really transparent, and I invite them to do the same. And I think that, I always tell them, like, if you don't want to be here and you think that I have a connection in a different company that I could help you with, like, I would love that, because I think that for them to be their genuine, authentic selves is what's most important. And if they're miserable, like, I'll help you get out of this.
Right.
Because nobody needs to be upset coming into work every morning. And luckily, my colleagues and my team are just such amazing people. They're very, very professional at a very young age. And so I'm grateful that so far I think we're heading in the right direction.
Did you have that same experience in the other industries, or is this, something that you've taken on to do things differently?
Yes, I think that in the Northeast, just things are quite different. Whether it's the pace, it's a little more cutthroat, it's a bit more competitive. And I think just being down here in the South, people are friendly, they're willing to lend a helping hand. It's not so much a race to the top. Everyone just grows together, and that's really what's been the most important for me.
Mm-hmm.
I got a Peru story. Can I throw that in before we go to baseball?
You bet.
So I've been to Peru one time, right? And I flew into Lima, caught a plane up to the Amazon to Iquitos, and then a little boat out into the little villages, remote villages, no electricity, no running water. People lived off the land, they fished. It was just so primitive. And so we're sitting around one day when the children of the village are playing soccer. And they just seem so happy, And we talked about the little children of the village, and we said, what's their dream? And they said, well, they dream that someday they'll go to Iquitos and live in the city. And I said, well, what about the children of Iquitos? What do they dream about? And they said, they dream about someday going to Lima, and a bigger city, and living in Lima. And so I asked, what do the children in Lima dream about? And they actually said, some of them actually dream about coming to America. And so it got me thinking, and how we all have dreams, and we all need dreams to pursue, and yet I go back to those little children in the village who are so happy, just playing soccer, football in the village, and how we all struggle with that contentment and then those dreams. And you've lived that story, I think, in your journey, the dreams that you from your parents and coming to America and all that. So talk a little bit about how you find contentment and how you pursue your dreams and balance all that out.
Definitely. I think for my parents, part of their dream was always just for my sister and I to be successful, to graduate high school, to graduate college, and to be successful on our own in our careers. My parents have always had the American dream, which was to live in a home. And so our entire lives we've lived in an apartment, and my biggest goal was to make sure that they had a home before I left, because I lived with them my whole life. I really couldn't afford to live on my own, and they were struggling financially, so for me it made no sense to ever have my own place when I could just live with them and help them financially. And finally, after saving my entire life, I was able to buy them a home in New Jersey, and so that's when I finally felt okay to start my chapter. I felt like I had to make sure they were okay, that they were taken care of, and now I can sleep at night knowing that they're happy in a home and their dreams are now coming true.
Oh, that's a great story.
It's powerful.
So as an avid sports fan, I'm always perplexed by baseball because it's the only sport that there's 162 games, of which you've got to have 81 home games.
Yes.
And so just to kind of get behind the scenes with you guys from an executive level, talk about, what is the game plan? How do you continue to look for ways for people to keep interest for 81 home games and to fill up your stadium multiple times a week? So just talk a little bit about that and what you're learning in the baseball space.
Definitely. It's for sure a challenge. A lot of times, we can look out our windows and see a lot of empty seats, and it's quite sad. But what we're doing now is building a new ballpark right across the street from our current ballpark. And it has a roof, which is the most exciting thing for the community because now it can
rain.
Expensive
roof. Air conditioning.
A very expensive roof.
It's expensive for sure. But yes, air conditioning. I've been through a lot of games already where it's over 100 degrees, and whether it's pouring outside or whether it's scorching hot and nobody wants to come to the games. So now we have a roof with AC. People are super excited. Part of the challenge is that people think that because it's a more premium luxury experience that they won't be able to afford seats, and that's absolutely not the case. We have affordable seats for $15 per ticket. So we're really excited to bring our fans back home in a new, fun environment, and we're hoping that the team does well in the AC and that our fans come out and support.
What's the plan for the old Globe Life Park?
XFL is buying it.
Okay.
So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, they'll have some football games and some events and concerts out there.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing building. I was
Yes.
I was one of those folks that said, hey, I hope they don't tear that down. It's got incredible character and
Right.
great seating arrangements. That's good to hear.
Definitely.
Well, the park was in pretty good shape. They were talking about how do we figure out how to do a retractable roof on the current ballpark we have, but there was no engineering way to make it happen. But
Well, winning solves everything, by the way, right? So just,
Exactly.
well, isn't that one of the challenges? How do you get people to come out whenever the team's not winning?
Exactly,
And,
right.
and that's got to be a marketing real challenge there.
Definitely it is. Well, when we get desperate, we'll have flash sales, and we're hoping that won't be the case in the new ballpark.
yeah. So how do you create how do you guys focus on really creating a family environment and a family experience for kiddos? And I mean, I heard about the affordability, but you bring your kids out to a Dallas Cowboys game and you need a new loan the next day. So how do you create that experience for kids to come out with their parents and have a great time?
Definitely. Yeah, we understand that it's a long game for children to sit through, and a lot of time they get restless and just uncomfortable and want to be running around doing something else. So we'll have theme nights, we have promotions, we have kids zones. We do a lot of things where we're trying to make it more of a family event. Of course, we're competing with Six Flags across the street, so you can spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, almost probably $1,000 when you're taking your entire family to Six Flags between the rides and the food. And so just trying to make sure that we're selling tickets to a ballpark where you can have a full day of fun events, but also getting that food, letting the kids enjoy their time in the kids zone, and just having different promotions with bobbleheads and just creating that environment for them.
And the sponsors can really make a difference in that
Absolutely.
area as well. Have there been any key sponsorship relationships
Yes.
that they're in place that you can talk about?
Yes, of course. So next year is still TBD, but this past year we've had great relationships with Hilton, T-Mobile, and Dr. Pepper, of course, and they're usually the ones who will help us promote different theme nights. So we usually have Bark at the Park where the fans can bring their dogs. So we'll be doing that a couple of times next year, and things like that they really help us create a buzz. So we'll create a buzz on social, they'll create a buzz as well, and then we usually like to drive tickets that way.
Yeah.
Other than the more comfortable air conditioning, what's can you give us another teaser about the new park?
Absolutely. So the seats will be much closer. Right now, the ballpark is a very U shape, and this will be a more intimate space. So all of the seats will be closer to home plate. It's going to be one of the best views that the MLB has in total. So really exciting there. It should just be more comfortable seating. And we're hoping that we perform well as well.
There you go.
That helps too.
Yeah, of course.
Well, one of the
exciting.
questions we like to ask all of our guests is, what inspires you? Is there a particular book or podcast that you're into now that's helping to continuously develop you as a leader?
Yes, and so I would have to plug my own book, but Today's Inspired Latina I'm in volume 4, but there are about 6 volumes now where every year they select 26 women to tell their own story, and it's just been such a great experience, not only to write the chapter that I wrote, but also to meet 25 other amazing women who are going through similar challenges, but also completely different challenges. And it doesn't end after the book comes out. We have a lot of book launches. They've gone completely international now, so they're in Dubai, Amsterdam, Mexico, all over the U.S. It started in Chicago and then branched out to New York, but now it's everywhere. And so just building that community, it's like a sisterhood. It really has changed my life, and I think it changes all of the authors' lives. So I would highly recommend picking up a chapter.
Yeah. Well, it's been very helpful for our guest list as well, because Millie is the 4th Inspired Latina to be our guest on the show. So it's been great having you as well today, and thank you for making time to visit with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I thought we'd do a quick wrap-up on the gala and some of the highlights that maybe you'd share, in addition to Millie's comments about what a great time it was.
Yeah, having Millie there was one of our highlights. So we just had a great crowd, number one, and they were unbelievably generous to our foundation. In the end, the gala is about raising resources. For us, it's about scholarships, and we base the number of students that we give scholarships to in 2020 on the success of the 2019 gala. So that's kind of how the rhythm of that works. So it's an important night for us, and we're very grateful for unbelievably generous people who get what we do and love what we do and support what we do. So we're excited that we're going to be able to do more in 2020 than we've ever done before, because we just hit some record numbers, and we're just grateful for that so much. I don't know, there's just the stories that we get to tell continue to inspire, and we've tried to make the gala both one of those really entertaining fun nights, but also one where the people just go home inspired. And I think that, Amelia, as you can attest to, I think we kind of hit a home run on that one, on this one. There was a lot of entertainment, a lot of inspiration.
Absolutely.
And the 2 award recipients, just to know what they've come through and what they're doing today, just really is nearly unbelievable to overcome the types of challenges that they have.
It was it's my 11th gala that I've been to in a row, and
we've already had 11.
I know. There you go. I'm aware. See, I can count. But it really goes back to it really does take a village to make it work, and the energy in the room and all the different relationships and the connections between all the different people, and how that's really grown over the last decade it's kind of fascinating, really, when you step back and you look at the different stories and the different people and the different names and sponsors and how it's all come about. It's really inspiring, and I'm just excited about what we've got planned for next year. Can we believe we've got to start planning for next year? Are you ready yet?
My favorite part of the program is when one of our board members said, "This was the best gala ever. What are you going to do next year to top it?"
Keep raising the bar.
There you go. But God helps us do that, and we just, part of it is what drives it is really the mission and the stories, and that never loses its power.
No.
And so, it's just a matter of how you're going to tell it and how you do it in a way that people just enjoy, and it's just fun to see the momentum we have right now. So we're grateful for it.
Very grateful.
And it's going to be another good one next year. We're going to go after
Let's
it.
hear about the first lady who married her 5th cousin once removed president.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So Tyler, do you have a guess?
Eleanor Roosevelt?
Yeah, she was.
Wow.
She was born Eleanor Roosevelt, and she always was Eleanor Roosevelt. That's kind of even after married.
Well, I recently learned that back in those days, marrying cousins was not all that uncommon.
Well, when you go 5th cousin once removed, it's pretty safe, I guess.
I guess so.
This is the second one.
Pre-DNA test, right?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's First Lady of the World, Eleanor Roosevelt.
I had heard that.
Excellent.
Quite an interesting story.
Well, that's a wrap for Legends in Leadership, episode number 50. And encourage everyone to follow our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, where you can check out the 49 previous episodes for all the wonderful guests we've had the opportunity to share some time with. And iTunes
is a great spot. So
yeah. Well, folks, on behalf of Tyler Tallman and Dr. Blair Ritchie, as well as our guest, Millie, I want to wish you a good day. And remember this: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader.
Legends in Leadership is brought to you by the Carrington Group. Carrington Group is a family office with a passion for helping business leaders and their families make smart choices and fulfill their highest aspirations. To learn more about the Carrington Group, visit their website at www.carringtonfo.com or Google Carrington Group Dallas, Texas. ISF is committed to leadership development for aged-out foster care and orphaned youth. ISF's mission is to transform these youth into tomorrow's leaders with scholarships, mentoring, and leadership training. To learn more about ISF, visit their website at isfsite.org or Google International Student Foundation to learn more.
Securities offered through Regulus Advisors, LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Regal Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors are affiliated entities. Carrington Group and this broadcast are independent of Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors.